गोविंद हरि मुरारी, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरि मुरारी, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव। हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरि मुरारी।
Welcome to Satsang. It's so beautiful to be back after even just a couple of days out. Yeah, that's a good place to start. First the mobile's on silent, and then the mind's on silent. How do we know what our path or dharma is if there's an internal conflict between two different paths? How do we know? So, the beautiful thing about life is there isn't only one right answer. A lot of us lose our mental peace in this idea that somehow there's this one thing I have to figure out. One answer I have to have, one piece I need to know. And then it'll all be okay. And what's beautiful about life is there really isn't a wrong answer. The only wrong answer is to move through life unconsciously. Even the things that we do that you could call quote unquote mistakes, the stuff that we look back on and we say, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Well, in a very small, narrow frame, it might have been wrong. So for example, if your only goal was to make a lot of money, and you took the advice of someone who had no idea what they were doing, and you invested all your money in the wrong place and lost it, well, okay, so in that small, narrow story, you could say that investment was a mistake. It was wrong. But we're not put here on earth just for these little stories. We're not put here on earth to end our lifetime having accumulated the most money, or having had the most power, or having had the most employees. You know, I've been exposed to a lot of different religions in the world. I'm far from an absolute expert on probably any of them, but I've been exposed to so many of them and heard so many teachings and teaching stories of so many, and I have yet to hear a story of any religion of any kind that has anybody dying and going before God. And in some of the stories, it's before God in heaven at the pearly gates, and some of it, it's just God in a more formless sort of way, depending on the religious tradition. But I have yet to hear of a story in which someone appears before God and God says, all right, how many employees did you have? our God says, all right, how many people were you in control of? Or God says, all right, how much power did you have? Or, show me your balance sheet. There's no story of any religious tradition that I've ever heard in which these are the things that we're ever judged by. Similarly, I've never heard stories either true or those kind of half-truth, half-fiction, inspirational stories that whether they're true or not, we love them and forward them on, in which somebody's on their deathbed and they're bemoaning the fact that they didn't accumulate enough employees, or that they didn't have power over enough people, or that they had invested in the wrong stocks. If you go out and you interview 100 people who work with those who are dying, doctors, nurses, chaplains, all the people work hospice care. Anybody working with those who are passing over, and you ask them, tell me how many of these people complain or regret that they didn't make more money, or worry that they didn't have more power, or worry that they didn't rise high enough on a career ladder. I have yet to hear even one story like that. And so, yes, in a very narrow, very limited picture, you could certainly say, oh, that was a wrong decision. Gave all my money to the wrong guy, he invested it in the wrong place, lost it. Okay. But when we're talking about dharma, purpose in life, the only wrong answer is not to be conscious. Otherwise, and it's such a beautiful thing, there is no wrong choice. Because even if you do something that leads you to suffering, well, okay, then you learn about suffering. You do something that leads you to loss, okay, you learn about loss. Because when we realize that ultimately our goal here, our purpose here, is to wake up, to experience the truth of who we are, then even if we allow ourselves mistakenly to be pulled by our ego, to be pulled by our desires, to be pulled by ignorance, to be pulled by all of these quote-unquote wrong forces, and they pull us into quote-unquote wrong places, yes, okay. But then you learn that. And the other beautiful thing about the universe is it has all the time in the world. And so you want to learn it in this life? Great. You want to spend this life following your ego, following your desires, following your fears, following your programming, and wait till next life to wake up? Okay. The universe is fine waiting. It's got all the time in the world. And so it really puts us in this exquisite position of realizing there is no wrong choice. It only depends on what our goal is. And so as the question says, what if there's two different options? Well, ask yourself, what is my goal? So for example, let's say that I know in the big picture, I need to get to Delhi. Okay, we'll call that a big picture goal, like I would like to have fulfillment in my life. It's kind of a destination. It's relatively vague. There's a lot of ways to get there, but nonetheless, it's a specific destination. But there's a lot of ways to get from Rishikesh to Delhi. And this is where I would need to ask myself, well, okay, lots of different options. What is really my goal? Is my goal to get to Delhi as absolutely fast as possible because I have an urgent meeting or an international plane to catch, or there's an exhibit at the museum that's ending tomorrow that I must see? Or just because I tend to be really anxiety-ridden and tense and nervous, and until I'm in Delhi, I'm not going to be peaceful? Whatever the reason may be. But if my ultimate goal is to get to Delhi absolute fastest way possible, at any cost, well, if I have the money, I'll hire a helicopter. I'll be there in half an hour. If not, I'll buy a ticket on the next flight. But let's say my goal is to experience India, to learn about parts of India that I otherwise wouldn't see. Well, so then my choices are down to a car, a bus, a train. And again, then you start thinking your goals. What are my goals? What's my unique karmic package? Because of course, in addition to goals, we all have different packages we've come into this world with. And on a personal level, I could say, well, I tend to be one of those people who doesn't have the largest bladder in the world, and so I find myself needing to use a washroom with some frequency. Okay, well, so a bus would be really difficult. Those drivers don't like to stop for people to go to the bathroom. Car also difficult, not a lot of clean places to go. Train would be my best option because they've got a bathroom right there on the train. But maybe somebody else had a completely different karmic package, which was that they got hungry a lot. And they really had specific types of food desires and needs, and they really wanted to ensure that they could stop at exactly the places they wanted to stop and eat. Well, so the car would be the right choice for them. But the point being, there isn't an ultimate right choice or wrong choice. There's no universal way that says an airplane is better than a car or a bus or a train. It all has to do with what is my goal. And in the same way, there's nothing that says it is wrong to spend your life attaining success. Nothing wrong spending your life attaining financial prosperity. What it does say is that tends to take you off the track of being focused on what's most important. So it's sort of a very zigzaggy, diversion-filled, one step forward, two steps back way of getting to the ultimate destination. But it's not wrong. It's not bad. It's not that you're going to, be punished by the universe for choosing it. You're just going to have to experience the consequences of it. So if I decided to walk to Delhi, well, it would take a lot longer. It would probably be a lot more difficult path. And so when I'm making choices and there are different options in front of me, rather than driving myself crazy trying to figure out what is the right one, as though there were a universal right answer, ask yourself, what is my goal? For some of us, our goal is to figure out what our dharma is and to just do it. To just do it, and to do it as selflessly as possible, as grounded and rooted in love and surrender as we possibly can. Because the ultimate goal is an experience of oneness with God that doesn't come very easily simultaneously with a great focus on external wealth and success. It's very hard to walk north and south at exactly the same time. You tend to have to focus on one or the other. And so it's very hard, similarly, to have your mind really focused on two things simultaneously, especially when they're pulling you in two completely different directions. And so if our highest goal is connection with God, is the truth of who we are, awakening, enlightenment, then we're going to make choices in line with that. It's okay. No problem. Don't worry. It's okay. We'll make choices in line with that. And so when you have this option, ask yourself, what is my goal? And once you know that, typically then it becomes very clear what the right choice is. These dilemmas arise usually between what we know we should do and what there's a voice in our head that says we want to do. So between what you could call dharma and desire. Or sometimes it's between dharma and fear. Sometimes that other voice isn't what I really want to do, but it's a voice that says, oh, you can't do that. Oh, you're not good enough to do that. Oh, you're going to fail at that. You're going to be humiliated if you do that. And so then again, it's this conflict between the voice of my dharma and the voice of my fear. Sometimes it's a conflict between the voice of my dharma and the voice of just my programming. My programming. You know, have you ever had an experience on a computer? It happens to me sometimes where I'll be working on a document. And I'll work on it for a while, maybe a few hours, maybe a few days. And at some point in the midst of working on it, due to an electrical something happens or a computer crash, when I get, or some updates get, installed without me thinking that they're going to get installed, and so the computer restarts itself automatically. And when the document pulls itself back up, it's a much, much earlier version. And I'm looking at it thinking, I know I've made changes to this. I know this is not the most recent version of my document. This is like months of work that's lost, right? You're looking at it and it's titled the same thing. And it kind of looks the same way, but it's a much, much, much earlier version. Well, so that actually happens in our lives. We have these patterns of our life. And then we start on a spiritual path and we work through them, a lot of it. We burn through a lot of karma. We develop discipline of the mind. We develop a new way of looking at the world, of being in the world, of looking at ourselves. And then something happens, some sort of metaphoric power outage. And suddenly, there is some old document, old pattern, old sanskara, that we look at it and we think, but that's so old, that's not me anymore. But there it is, pulling at us as another voice. But if we become quiet and we really ask ourselves, what is my goal? Again, with full spaciousness, without a sense of there's right or there's wrong. Because again, desire is not wrong. Fear is not wrong. Old patterns are not wrong. They're just limiting, they're handicapping us on this path to live in our truth. And so they're just making it, they're like weights on us, sort of pulling us back, covering our sight so we can't see. And if you're really honest and really courageous and quiet, you'll know inside which is the path of my dharma and which is this path of desire or the path of fear or the path of an old habit, an old pattern, an old sanskara. And then occasionally in life, there are situations where there really are 2 or 3 equally good choices. And we see this a lot in youth. Which university to go to, or, which job to take. Well, a lot of times it's really a win-win-win situation. Because it's what you make of it. In all these cases, what's most important is that we realize whatever we choose, to do it consciously, to live it consciously, and to make sure that we're making choices in alignment with our highest unfolding, with our highest truth. And by highest, it doesn't mean, of course, most ego-inflated. I'm supposed to be king of the world. Why hasn't it happened yet? You're all obstacles in my path feeling. But highest as in deepest and truest. Knowing. And not allowing ourselves to be derailed by the voice of desire or fear or old patterns. Unless, of course, our highest goal is just to come back and do it all over again next life. But it's beautiful because every moment we have a new choice. Regardless of what you chose in the last moment. Regardless of what you chose 3 minutes ago. Regardless of if the last thought in your mind right before this moment was, it's not fair, I hate him, I hate her, I hate myself. Regardless of what the last thought may have been, right now in this moment, you have the choice for a new thought. You have the choice for a new option, a new sanskara, a new pattern, a new way. But you have to choose it because you want it, not because some book says you should do it, not because I say you should do it, because if you do it like that, then you're just going to resent it. Then it's better choose the path of fear and desire and at least learn your lesson and come back and do the other path sincerely. You have to choose the light because that's really what you want. Because more than anything, what you want is to live your truest, highest, fullest experience and life. And only then it can happen. And when you want that, it can happen any moment. Are there any other questions that are here, that anyone here has, before taking any of the others that came in advance? Yes.
In what you said, there's a conflict that I have, which is, like, my daughter will ask me for something that promising her things that I know I can't deliver.
And why would you promise her something if you know you can't deliver it, And then it's just going to make you feel guilty.
Well, I think that I hope that there's an opening in that. You know, I keep thinking
Something
maybe
will happen. I'll be able to.
Yeah, and I'll
Yes.
be able to do it.
Okay.
But it's just like I don't know how to make that happen.
Are these external things that she wants? Like, I need this much money, or I need this type of a house or car? Or are these things from you as a mother that she wants?
Well, it's she's going to school in a distant location, and where she wants to live closer, and it's a big financial burden for me, and I'm not able to do that.
Okay.
So I'm trying to figure it out.
Good question. So I'm going to just expand it for a moment, because I think this is a situation that applies to a lot of people in the core issue. We have loved ones, particularly when there are children, but I think it also applies for children to their parents as their parents age, of a sense of, I should be able to provide for them more than I'm able to. I imagine sometimes spouses also feel this for each other. I should somehow, what they're asking is not unreasonable. She wants to move closer to home, but it's more expensive. But I should be able to provide that. And there's this sense of guilt, as you say, that I'm somehow a failure as a mother to not be able to provide that. And what I would say to you is that as a mother, what she needs from you more than anything is to learn how to honestly and courageously take responsibility for our own lives. That if what she learns is, because obviously when it doesn't happen, when you make a promise and you can't fulfill it, well, she knows that you haven't been able to fulfill it. So what she learns in that way is, rather than honestly assessing a situation, rather than honestly realizing that the present moment, even in its lack of enough money, lack of enough health, lack of enough opportunity, so many different lacks that in so many situations we face. It's the absolute reality of so many people's world today. That in that situation, A, it's something we should feel badly about, therefore we lie, or we make false promises, and that rather than honestly assessing it and figuring out, okay, what to do about it, somehow if we pretend that it isn't a problem, it'll go away. And that's actually a really detrimental lesson to be teaching her. And as a daughter, even though she may be saying to you, Mom, what I want from you is for you to give me enough money so I can move back closer to home, on a deep level, what she really needs from you is, Mom, I want you to teach me how, with grace and stability and perseverance and surrender and even joy and acceptance, I can continue to live where I'm living because we don't have the money for me to move closer to home. Because this is only the first of so many things in my life that are not going to go exactly the way I want them to go. I mean, that's a lesson that's really better off learned sooner rather than later. Because not everything in our life, particularly things related to money and opportunity and ease and comfort and luxury and accessibility, that stuff doesn't go our way. And the sooner that we learn that actually there's a greater gift in that acceptance. And that doesn't mean, by the way, that we give up. It doesn't mean that if we're in a situation where there's lack that we say, oh, okay, this is all that I'm deserving of, this is fine. It's not that. We hold out the vision, the expectation even, of full abundance, overflowing abundance and prosperity in the future. But we also stay grounded in the real. This is a real and ideal marriage. So it's not a matter of I give up and I say, okay, so I'm never going to have enough money. I'm never going to be able to do what I want. No. I hold out the ideal. That's why she's in school. Presumably when she graduates, she'll have a degree. She'll get a job. She'll be able to do better. She'll make money. I mean, this is why people sit through classes that they're not interested in for many, many hours, for many, many years, because it's a vision. It's a vision of, I will sacrifice in the short term in order that in the long term, I will have this piece of paper. In exchange for all these hours I've spent sitting in class, I'll get a piece of paper. That piece of paper will give me opportunity. That piece of paper will open doors, careers, jobs, vocations, whatever it is, that therefore I will make money and have opportunities. That's why people do that. Otherwise, why would people spend so many years spending all the hours of their day sitting in classes they weren't interested in? So at some point in the future, presumably, she will have the money to do with it whatever she wants. But at the moment, the lesson for you to teach her is that this is a wonderful opportunity to find peace and find an experience of inner abundance, even if there's something she wants externally that's not happening her way. There's a beautiful teaching. There was an incredible saint who used to live right across Ganga from us, Swami Dayananji Maharaj, who left his body a few years ago. And he used to say, and I hold this very dear to my heart and share it frequently, he used to say, the only definition of success that matters at all, he would say, I don't care how much you make, I don't care what your title is, I don't care any of that. The only definition of success that matters is how you respond to the inevitable times, they happen to everybody, inevitable times when the universe does not act the way you think it should. I'll give that again. Success is how you respond to the inevitable times when the universe does not act the way you think it should. And so this is a perfect opportunity for her to learn and for you to model this success. The universe is not acting the way you think it should. There isn't enough money in the bank for her to move close to home while still being in school. What a wonderful opportunity to learn about a different model of success. Not to be bitter, not to be resentful, but of course to keep holding out the vision, the expectation, the manifestation of the abundance, while simultaneously knowing in this present moment, everything is exactly right. Whether I'm 5 kilometers from home or 50 kilometers from home or 500 kilometers from my mom's home, this moment is exactly perfect. And that's what she needs from you in this moment. So stop telling her things that aren't true. A, it makes you feel horribly guilty, which then is not only unfair to you, but it's actually a lie to you. So it's two lies. One is the lie to your daughter, yes, we'll make it happen. But the other is the lie to you, which is that guilt, which says to you, you are a bad mom. Because you're not a bad mom. The mark of a good mom is not one who has enough money that her daughter can live close to home. There's no book that's written in the list of criteria for a good mom. So every time you have guilt, that is a lie to you. And that's not fair. Because that is an absolute untruth that you tell yourself, but you set yourself up for it. Because first you tell your daughter an untruth that you know isn't true. And then you allow yourself to drown in the guilt of feeling like a bad mother for not providing something. But there isn't any need to provide anyway. Sure, if you had it, great, you'd give it to her. You don't have it, you can't give it to her. At some point she'll earn it, or it'll come, or she won't. And then you'll figure it out. But none of that makes you a bad mother. Yeah, model for her an acknowledgement of the reality of the situation. With peace, with acceptance, with embrace, with knowing it's exactly perfect in this moment, while also holding out this vision and working toward it. Yeah. It's important because we all make different decisions in our lives. And if you had made a different decision 20 years ago, you might have had money. But you might have not been able to be the type of mom that you were to her. But when guilt comes, guilt is like this narrow a vision, and it doesn't let us see actually all of the goodness. It only shows us that one point of lack. And so it's this untruth that takes such a tapestry of goodness and shows us just, see where that thread's starting to come unraveled? Instead of seeing the beautiful tapestry. Yeah. Sure, we'll take it as the last question.
Sometimes I imagine that there's a goal, we are working towards a goal, while the ultimate goal is self-realization of moksha, and it may take several lifetimes to achieve that. And as per my understanding,
Why does it have to take several lifetimes? He said, so our ultimate goal is self-realization. But it takes several lifetimes to achieve that. It doesn't have to take several lifetimes.
may or may not be, it may take or may not take. So like as per the level of our evolvement, so we are on the path of evolvement. So like if it takes several lifetimes, so is there a goal for a particular lifetime? Like I'm here in this lifetime, what is my goal and how do I find it?
Your goal for every lifetime is to get as close to that ultimate goal as possible. So, and this is what the scriptures and the sages and the masters teach us so much, is that ultimate goal can be reached at any moment. It's not like a normal ladder, or it's not like a normal corporation or a school where you can't go to 12th grade unless you go one by one by one by one by one. At most, they may let you skip one grade, but nobody's going to let you go from 1st grade to 12th grade. Nobody's going to let you go from being the mail deliverer to being the CEO in one jump. You work your way up. First you deliver mail, then you become the in charge of the mail room, then you become, a peon in a different office, then you slowly. But with our self-realization, it can happen now. And this is something that the scriptures tell us. It's something the masters tell us. It's something that we're told and see. And we can even experience it if you really allow yourself to become quiet and still for enough moments, thread together. You have a touch of it. Because see, the difference between acquiring a PhD in physics and having self-awakening is one is about the self. Physics is about outside. I don't have an inherent knowledge of physics. It doesn't come in me. I've got to learn it. Some of us will learn it faster than others, but all of us have to learn it. But when you talk about self-awakening, self-realization, God-realization, this is going back to the truth of who you are. It's like saying, how long does it take you to take all your clothes off and get naked? Well, depends how you do it. I mean, sure, you could spend 30 years undoing a button, spend another 30 years undoing the next button, spend 10 years trying to get your zipper down, and you could spend lifetimes trying to get your clothes off. Or throw them off automatically. 30 seconds. Boom, naked. Because where you're going is what you already have. It's not that you have to buy and find a naked body somewhere out there and you better get in your car and go to the shopping center or get on Amazon and order it immediately or find some nakedness and glue it onto you. You already have it. It's just buried underneath all this stuff that isn't your naked body. And so it's up to you how long you want to take. You could say, well, this stuff has been on me for such a long time, it's hard to take off. And okay, because it hurts so much, because the ego hurts so much, let's just do the shawl this lifetime. I'll kind of peel the layer of the shawl off. And then maybe next lifetime, I'll have the strength to let you take my shirt off. Or you can realize that what feels like pain of pulling it off is nothing compared to the pain of not living the ultimate truth of who you are. At which point your goal becomes just get it off in any way as fast as possible, because this is what is keeping you between you and the truth of you. So the goal of every lifetime is get as close to that as possible. Figure out what is it that is blocking you from it. What ignorance, what fear, what pattern, what ego, what stuckness. And then work with it. Work with it so you can let it go. I'm not saying it's easy.
Karmic bondages are such hard to.
Well, karmic bondages they're there until we surrender to God. This is what what Lord Krishna gives us the answer to so beautifully in the Gita. Surrender it all to me. He doesn't say, yeah, keep practicing, keep practicing, keep practicing. Eventually, after many lifetimes, you'll get it. He says, Arjun, this is what you're here for. You want enlightenment, you want moksha, you want to be free? Surrender whatever you do to me. Realize you are a tool in my hands. Stop thinking I. Realize you're a tool. Surrender. 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 And then it's automatic. So let that be your goal. Don't sell yourself short. Don't tell yourself, well, this is only second grade, so all that's required of me is to, learn how to do addition. Can put off multiplication for a few years. Don't sell yourself short. Don't tell yourself, oh, it's going to take me lifetimes, cello, in this lifetime, let me just maybe take up something easy. I'll quit smoking in this lifetime, that's it. Or I'll deal with one issue. I'll stop biting my nails in this lifetime, okay. Deal with the rest in my next lifetime. Don't sell yourself short. Pujya Swamiji always says, whenever you wake up, it's morning. When you decide, I'm going to open my eyes, I'm going to wake up, it's morning.